Welcome to Creators Anonymous. I'm your host, James, and this is my co-host, Seth.
Hey, guys.
Before we get to our creator this week, we are going to run a promo for a podcast we strongly recommend.
We will be right back. Enjoy.
Hello, our little future foundling-laws. I'm Emily, also known as Snow, and I'm the GM for the Gate Chronicles.
And I'm Quentin, the GM for the Odd campaign. Collectively, we are the co-founders of Missing Role Player Found, or MERP for short.
We are an RPG actual play podcast.
Do you like character voices?
Do you like drama?
Are you titillated by action and adventure?
Mystery and intrigue.
Are you here for the puns and quips and funny tricks?
Are you my mom?
If so, head on over to our website, missingroleplayerfound.com. That's missing, R-O-L-L, playerfound.com.
And prepare to embark on misadventures of epic proportions.
Here's a sneak peek of what's in store.
What year is it?
Asking a fortune teller this.
Horses do not, fun fact, like being upside down.
He can do it. I think he can do it.
This whole time, I thought just using my hand was the way to go, but apparently they had toilet paper.
Give me the ugly.
I see. So you mean the New Year's Eve hallowed sacred poem?
Quite a lengthy name you have for it, though.
Thank you for listening to that promo. And on today's episode, we have Jerry. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Hey, awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
So before we get started grilling you for questions, can you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, man. Make sure you stop me ahead of time because I'm pretty good at getting off on tangents. I tend to just kind of ramble. So, but yeah, no. How far back you want me to start? Like birth or not? Childhood? Or...
Just give us a quick, this is who I am, this is my family, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Are you married? You got kids?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, okay. Well, so I'll set the record straight here. I was originally born in Virginia Beach, but when I was 3, I was a Navy brat. Both my parents were in the Navy. My mom, for a short time, my dad retired, and we moved to Iceland when I was 3, and then when I was 6, we moved to Texas, and Texas is my home. So I claim Texas. I don't feel like it's where you're born. I feel like it's where you're from, where you get your upbringing and your values and culture. So I'm from Texas through and through, and I'll argue that till I die. So and yes, Whataburger's better than In-N-Out. So we'll just throw that down as well.
I strongly agree with that. But being from Seattle, it doesn't hold a candle to Dick's.
Dick's? Like not Dick's Sporting Good, right? Like Dick's Burgers?
Like Dick's Burgers.
That's what it's called.
I've never heard of Dick's Burgers.
It's only in Seattle, and I'm telling you, it's so freaking good.
Hey, I'm all about it, man. I'm all about it. But yeah, so let's see, where do I grew up here in Texas. I had 2 brothers. I got married in 2011 to my wife. We met in high school, 2008. So we're married almost 10 years. We've been together for roughly 12, 13. And I joined the Air Force. And right after we got married, and we moved out to Okinawa, Japan for about 3 years. And then from there, we went to North Carolina and ended up getting out, moving back home to Texas here. So that way our kids could be with their grandparents because all their grandparents were here. So we have a 7-year-old who was actually born on my birthday. So now I share that with him. And then last summer we had another one. So I have 2 boys.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I was done at 1. I think my wife was too. But I have 2 brothers, and she's an only child. And we wanted to kind of let those odds play to see if it happened again or not. Like we put like a cutoff, like, hey, if we don't have any more by 30, that's it. Like we will medically ensure that this doesn't happen anymore. But it did, and I can't imagine our family any other way. So super happy with it, and especially with all this COVID stuff going on, it's been really nice to be home. When I was in the Air Force, I was an electrician on the F-15 fighter jets, so a lot of demand in that career field, that work, so constantly out on the flight line. So I missed a lot of milestones with my first son and just kind of being a part of that early development stage. So it's been really nice to just kind of be working home for the last 8 months or so, and just be a part of that. I got along in the military, 9 days for paternity leave, where I'm working at now, I got almost 4 months. So it was,
Nice.
So
nice.
It was, I was home all last year through like Thanksgiving and then the holidays, and then a little bit of January, went back, and then middle of March. They kicked us home. We've been home ever since, and I love it. So super happy with that. But yeah, that's I guess that's a good segue to how I kind of got started into. I guess I'm a creator for 3D printing now, which is insane. So I remember last year my wife was talking to me about like Christmas gifts and like what I had in mind, and I've always been super into D&D, and she's like, "Have you ever thought about 3D printing?" I was like, "No, not really." I thought it was extremely expensive to do it in your own home. I thought it was I just had all the wrong thoughts about it because I never did any research and never brought any interest to me. And she ended up getting me Ender 3 for Christmas, which is super affordable. I think they're going for like $190 right now, maybe $200. You can get them on a good sale. An extremely versatile machine that can do all sorts of 3D printing. If you want, you want to print vases or desktop items or organization things, you can do it. You want to print functional things, you want to print tiny things. So she got me that, and I was like, man, we could probably do something with this. And started kind of mixing Dungeons and Dragons, D&D tabletop game stuff into the 3D printing world. And then in about that January, February timeframe, that's when I was like looking online and on YouTube and stuff, and I saw somebody had 3D printed Catan, Settlers of Catan, the board game. And so I was like, I got to do this. We need this. We play Catan on a weekly basis in my house. So my wife and I printed it, painted it. It took us like 3 months to do it all. It was a big challenge. And then we did it. And now here we are like almost a year later. And we have like our own Etsy shop now, and we're selling 3D printed Catan, either painted or unpainted.
How did you get the permission to do that? Like that was
yeah.
Really, really quick. I'm sorry. So I found you on TikTok, and I found you because of the Elgu Mars, and like I've been looking at 3D printers for a long time. I used to have the Perusa 3, but my wife was just like, "This thing is a fire hazard. Get it out of my house." Which it did. It got really, really hot at times, and I had a lot of failed prints because it overheated, and the overheat alarm I had on it just drove her insane because it sounded like a fire alarm.
Right.
And that way I was like, well, no, I need to be able to hear this anywhere in the house, so I don't burn down the house.
Right.
And she just wanted it out of the house, and I was like, okay, how do I defeat this problem and still be able to do it? So I started researching the Elgu Mars, and I wanted it here in my office, but I don't have a lot of airflow. And everything I was reading about it was these fumes are toxic and horrible. Don't put it into an enclosed space. And I'm just like, well, crap. And then I found you, and I was like, all right, I got to ask this guy questions. And you were very responsive, and that's one thing I was like, I really like this guy as a creator.
Appreciate
He's responsive. He answers questions. And I'm just some dude that just started following him. When he gets big, how is he going to act? And I understand big creators can't see every comment and reply to every comment, but you were very, very responsive. And I was just
I appreciate it.
And you threw away a whole bunch of my doubts about the Elgu Mars, and I was like, I'm getting it.
Yeah, nice. You have it now.
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
I'm waiting for some funds to get available, and then
me
and my wife, we hit some tribulation and everything, and we decided to make the move to a different state. We're now moving to Idaho from Washington, so it got put on the back burner, but it's still a dream.
Yeah, man. So I got the Elgu Mars, and I got into resin printing. So I guess I'll say this. For starters, I would say if you want to get into 3D printing and you don't know if you want to do resin or filament, start with filament, or FDM as some people call it. Start with an Ender 3 because it's extremely affordable and it can do everything that you can imagine 3D printing can do. I had that as a baseline, and I was like, you know what? What's one more printer really going to do? Let me look at this. Let me get this resin one and try this out. And I was looking at comparisons, and I was like, man, these results are crazy. Like when you're talking about printing something that's 28 millimeters high, and you want it to have the detail of something that's 2 feet high, I wanted something that can do that. So I got the resin one, and then I printed some minis, and I was like blown away. And so ever since then, I've been a big fan of the Elgu Mars, especially. I even reached out to them to see if they would not sponsor me on an ongoing thing, but I was like, hey, you guys really haven't tapped into the TikTok market, so you guys want to do something? You want me to send me something, send me one of your newer printers or something. And they were like, well, we're filled up on sponsorships right now, but we'll be in touch. And I was like, okay, this is going nowhere. But I thought it was cool to do. But I love the resin. And that's probably like the biggest question is like, is it toxic? Is it this and that? Is it dangerous? And I'll tell you this, I'm in a room that's like 12 feet by 9 feet. And I had that and the I had the El Gumars printing and the filament printing at the same time all the time. And I'd be in here working. And it's not a big deal. Can you smell it? Yes. A little bit, but it does go away. And you also can get an air purifier and purify the air. I would always recommend to print with the lid on, like the big red shiny lid, because I've seen people run their prints without that, and that's dangerous for multiple reasons. One, something knocks that printer over, you have resin spilt everywhere. Two, now the fumes are in the air, which they should be enclosed. And three, the resin is cured by ambient light or the light. There's an LCD screen under it. So if you don't have the lid on, the reason that lid is red is to block out those the UV rays and things like that actually cure the resin. So if you don't have that on there to block it, the light in your room is potentially curing the resin on top, and you're just going to have a mess. So there's a reason that lid is there. So definitely do that. But as long as you use common sense, it's not a dangerous thing. It's not even the same kind of resin. Like a lot of people use it to make dice, like that. Like it's not epoxy resin. I don't really know what it is, but it's not the same kind of resin that people use to make molds and other things, resin things. It's not the same kind of as that. I don't recommend sniffing the bottle directly. You should wear a mask. You should have gloves on. And you should also be mindful that it's a liquid, so it's going to get everywhere if you're not careful with it. So I always coat the table in like plastic saran wrap so it never gets under that. And then I coat that with about 3 to 5 layers of paper towels just to have something to absorb it if I drip anywhere. But other than that, it's not a dangerous thing. It's no more dangerous than doing the other stuff that we do every day, which is driving your car and getting hit by somebody else, or a lawnmower. You're not going to put your hand in the spinning blade of a lawnmower, right? So you shouldn't be walking around with open resin, no gloves on, being dangerous or careless with it. So if you're not a responsible person, maybe don't get into resin. But I definitely think it's a super easy thing to do within the household. It's very compact, very versatile machine, and it can do a lot. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I've been, and one of the things I really was drawn to you as a creator is I actually challenged you with a very difficult print. And
yes.
you took up that challenge with stride, and you did an amazing job on it. So I was blown away, and I sent you like the most difficult one I can make. And note, it was also something I've been working on for a long time and refining and everything, because for my own personal D&D game. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, this guy just blew me away. And that was like the final straw of, do I really want to get this? Because what I want to do with an El Gumars is I want to be able to print my own statues for everything.
Right.
And one of the things I enjoy doing is I actually program my own NFC amiibo cards for my Nintendo Switch.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
How awesome would that be if I was able to print my own amiibo in alternate forms? Like I would be able to move, like I love all the amiibos now, but I would like to see them in different ways.
Right.
So I'd love to be able to print my own. And I'm not saying I want to sell those because that's bad, but what I would do is I would definitely like make them as presents for people that I know that play Nintendo Switches and use them. So I think that and the El Gumars is exactly what I'm looking for. So,
yeah, that was a crazy mini that you sent me for sure. I mean, it had something on the print going in every direction. I mean, the tail was under the wings. It was holding its own like weapon. It had wings. It had arms. It had a big sword. I mean, it was a crazy test for sure. And that was actually the first print that I did. There was no fails beforehand. So I was really happy with that. And that made me feel like I knew what I was doing when it came to resin printing. And what's funny though, now I'm running into problems now. I'm trying to try different colors. Like I found a file for the one skulls, and I have a translucent blue that when it's printed, it looks like glass, like kind of like dragon glass from Game of Thrones. And I'm like, I want this dragon skull in this. And I have had about 12 failed prints with it. And I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing. I'm sure it's my fault. Something I don't think my cure times are set right, and things like that. So I'm troubleshooting that and working with it. But if I'm using standard gray, I can get your print done for sure.
So I'm a guy that does a lot of research and everything, and if the one thing that I'm noticing is Elgu Mars, they're very particular about the resins they produce for the Elgu Mars. So if it's an off-brand, that could be possibly why you're seeing a lot of fails.
Yeah, all the resins I have are Elgus
That's good, but one of the things that I keep reading is read your bottle, because they actually have the information on your bottle. And I was like, I never would have thought of that. And Elgu, the reason I really like them as a company is they put dummy instructions on it.
Yeah, they do, yeah. I'm running into the difference right now between standard resin and like ABS like photopolymer resin. So a little bit of a difference with them, but what's cool is part of the Catan that I print some of the pieces in resin because they're so small and detailed, and I can get more out of them simultaneously on the Elgu Mars than I can on the Ender 3. So I printed a bunch of these little pieces in gray, and I noticed that the ABS kind of has like a shimmer to it versus a standard gray. It's just gray. So if you take the ABS and you kind of shimmer it in the light, it's kind of got that rainbow effect that, when you shine the light over something, it does that. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting, but it looks really cool. So even if you just print statues in gray, it still kind of has more definition and like uniqueness to it. So that's pretty cool. But gray's working, but other colors, I've used green and red. I printed some, I don't know if you guys ever played Stardew Valley. I printed some little Junimos in red. They look like Jolly Ranchers though. Like they're just little red things, but they're really cool.
Having kids, that may not be a good thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but my son loves it because he's like, Dad, can you print me another toy or something? He's like, big Pokemon stuff, so he wants Pokemon toys.
How often are your kids on Thingiverse like, Dad, look at this, print this, Dad, look at this, print this?
I printed some, I printed this little shark and this little octopus, and the way they print is they print all in one piece, but when you pull it off the printer, you can kind of snap the pieces apart. And then they're just kind of chain linked together. So it's an octopus with 8 chain link little tentacles. And the same thing with the shark, but the body is all chain linked together. And so I printed those and I gave them to him, and we went to the pool at my dad's, and he played with them for hours in there. And I found them in his room the other day because he put them up on the shelf. And I was like, oh, you still have these? They're not broken like all your other toys? And he's like, no, they're still doing it. I was like, dang it, this is better than what you can buy at the store now. So, but he likes it. I mean, I'll just pull it up and ask him, like, wait, man, what do you want? And just throw something on there for him. So it's pretty cool.
Just a heads up. There's something I want James to print for me. There's a giant Rayquaza that's 3 feet long. It's on there, and I want one.
No, it's the one I was. So it's been updated. It's now 5 feet long.
Dang.
And
big,
they have it in two files. They have one specifically for resin. They have one specifically for FTL.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here looking at the resin print, and it's a hollow print and everything. And they're like, this is gonna take about 4 jugs of liquid to print. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So I definitely stick to minis for the resin just because of how much you can get out of one bottle. And yeah, it just seems a lot better. So that's really what I've been kind of working on now. And it sucks because I wish I was able to post more on TikTok, because I would just spend my weekends printing things and filming them, and then I'd spend the week making the videos and posting them throughout the week. But now I have 4 Ender 3s now in one room, and I'm just constantly printing the Catan stuff. And then I have the resin just kind of sitting there, and I go and print on it a little bit here and there. And but yeah, I mainly use the Elgu Mars for minis and monsters and things like that for Dungeons and Dragons. And then I use the filaments for the Ender 3s for terrain. So, I spent a while printing a bunch of dungeon tiles and little clips to put them together, but I really didn't like, me personally, I didn't like how they came out. And then I just had to, I'd have to print, or I had to paint them, and it just became too much. So I've just gone to kind of using 2D maps and then using the minis on top of them. But something I'm working on with another TikTok creator right now is he's a 3D designer, and we're basically working together to design D&D terrain, and then I would 3D print it, and we would sell that on the Etsy shop, just like tables, chairs, wizard altar, bookshelves, those little common items that, unfortunately most comic shops have, but they're just so expensive, So on Etsy, you can buy, you'll be able to buy them painted or unpainted. You want to paint it yourself, do your own color scheme, cool, or you could we could do it for you, that kind of thing. But he's working on like a 2D design for those maps as well. Nice. So then, you could kind of get the 2D map from him and then the 3D stuff from us and put them together, and you'd have like this little world for your D&D campaigns.
Well, if you guys need help with 2D maps, I may have a reference for you.
Okay.
We're actually interviewing right after you. A lady that she's works out of England, and she makes 2D D&D maps.
Okay.
So
nice.
I might have a reference for you.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, definitely.
So are you guys gonna dip into cyberpunk at all?
What do you mean?
So this is kind of selfish of me, but we're running a cyberpunk D&D game right now, and
okay.
Nobody does any other genres than the fantasy D&D. Like,
right.
Nobody does
taverns, blacksmiths,
anything like that. And I'm like, okay, we've mixed fantasy with cyberpunk, so you have all the fantasy tropes you like, but in a cyberpunk futuristic setting.
Right.
Like, my character's a fighter with a rogue subclass that is a blacksmith, so he creates all the weapons, and we go down into dungeons to get monster materials to make into new weapons and armor and stuff like that. And we're doing it in a futuristic setting. Like, there are cell phones, there are cars, there are stuff like that. So we're having lots of fun with it. So have you guys ever thought of dipping into other genres outside of the fantasy base?
I would say yes. Like, we don't have a lid on anything that we only want to do this or that kind of thing. Only the what are they called? The D&D, like the campaign book. We're not like tied to that at all or anything. Because I've seen some of the designs that he has that are like, sci-fi maps and things like that. And so we've definitely talked about those kinds of items. We're kind of starting smaller right now. So, and we're kind of thinking like package deals, so you could get like a tavern set and that would be what you have, you know what I mean? But I definitely think we do want to potentially branch out into those things. We haven't really talked too much about it right now. We're working out the kinks between 3D designing something and then making sure that it translates on a 3D printer before we kind of, okay, let's make a package for this, let's do a package for that, let's do this and that. But I mean, I could see that kind of happening. We're just in the early stages right now. We've kind of teased a few things on TikTok and stuff like that, but nothing set in stone for sure. So I think it's a great idea for sure, and I will bring that to the table because that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome.
Real quick, what's the name of your Etsy shop and where can people find you? Because we haven't touched on that yet. I mean, James found you on TikTok and
yeah.
So.
The Etsy shop is called MimicsAndMakes.
Okay.
Which we thought was a really cool name because 3D printing, anything you 3D print is essentially a mimic of a real life item. And also, if you play D&D, you know exactly what a mimic is. And then we also have a few other items that we make, like I do a lot of graphic design on the side. So we're working on other sticker designs and, other kind of makes that we could do like that as well. So Mimics and Makes just really came out to be like such a perfect name. I will give credit to my wife. It was her idea for that. But the 8-bit sword is our logo and that's my design. So I love that. I love 8-bit stuff, man. But yeah, Mimics and Makes, it's on Etsy. It's a pretty small shop right now, and we've just got Catan right now, painted and unpainted, and then a handful of stickers. But we are working on branching out into other things later on. Otherwise, if you want to find me specifically, I would say my TikTok or Instagram, and it's Eplaw, which is EPLLAW. my last name backwards. It's not clever. It's not cool. It's just what I've gone with because there's no numbers in it. So I've just been rolling with it for a handful of years. So that's how you can find me.
Cool. So you said you play Catan in your house weekly. So in your opinion, how does 3D printing these pieces affect the game compared to with the regular cardboard pieces? Like, is there anything that sticks out? I mean, obviously it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, no one has it.
I think it looks awesome. And also my wife and I are really, really proud of the like hand painted that we did for it. Our version doesn't look as good as the version we sell now because we've been painting for months now. So we've gotten better. We've figured out better techniques and blending and all kinds of different things like that. So now the copies that we sell are actually like way better looking than what we play on. But I did print the expansion or the expanded version of the base settler, so we can play up to 6 people on ours. Awesome. And it's big, and I just think it looks awesome, man. It doesn't change. I actually think it's a little bit better than the 2D design because if you bump the table on a 2D design, your pieces could go everywhere. Versus the 3D, everything kind of has a slot. There's a couple millimeters in between where the roads and the cities and settlements fall versus where the actual like design of the tile is. So if you bump the table, your roads are in a slot. They're not going to move anywhere. Your cities are in a slot. Even the tokens, there's a circle on each tile, so the number tokens aren't moving around as well. So if you have a reckless table or somebody's getting mad because they got the robber again or something like that, it could shift. So I think it's cool. I think it's I just think it looks good, man. And there's a ton of people on there as well. On Thingiverse, where you can find these kinds of designs, other people have taken the cities and settlements and designed their own things. So you could have like an Asian themed cities and roads and stuff like that, and they look different from like castles and little huts and things like that. Or you could have just other kinds of countries, so different themes. So if you want, if one player at the table wanted to have an Asian themed cities and stuff like that, you could print that for them and paint it in their color for them, and then that would be those pieces for them. Somebody else got something different. So when it's all said and done, and you look at the end of the game, it just looks like this whole world that was created. And then that's the best part about Catan is every time you play, it's different. So every time you remake the map and stuff, it just looks different. It just looks super cool. So.
All right, now we need Star Wars Catan, Star Trek Catan, Middle-earth Catan.
Dude, I agree. I look. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I have a Star Wars half sleeve on my one arm. Lord of the Rings one on my other arm. My son's name is actually Revan after Darth Revan. So yeah, and that was my wife's idea, not mine.
Oh wow.
So yeah, Star Wars themed stuff. I mean, Star Wars tabletop sounds awesome. I just I think it'd be super cool.
One of the first attacks Thingiverse got was the Star Wars miniatures game. People were literally scanning the miniatures and uploading them to Thingiverse like print your own. Stop paying $40 for an X-wing.
Yeah, that's hard. It's rough, man. I mean, the stuff out there is expensive, and I get it. I'm a business major. I work in corporate America. I get the business side of things, but at the same time, as a consumer. That was my biggest thing. When I first started playing D&D, I was perfectly content with playing with little Lego figures I've had since I was a kid. Like, I was like, this is my mini. I can do whatever I want with them. I can go get armor. It's a piece of Lego, and then use the Lego treasure chest and stuff. But now, after getting into it and 3D printing stuff, I'm like, nah, I want the minis. I want the terrain. I want this on my table. But I don't want to pay $80 for a box of minis, and I'm only going to use one monster in that box, so it's a hard buy.
I just bought. I was in Idaho visiting my grandmother, and I was walking through a card shop, and I found they had one that I've been looking for a long time, which was the Red Dragon mini, and because everywhere sold out of the Dragon minis, and I was like, oh my god, I'm taking this. And I flipped it over to check the price, and they had it marked down from $75 to $25. And I was like,
"Oh, it's a steal!"
Oh my god, I'm getting this. But I'm sitting here going, the regular price is $75. Like,
yeah,
what are you guys doing? And it wasn't even painted. So
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And I actually I work with a guy that paints minis, so he
Okay.
painted it for me, and it came out amazing.
Nice.
So, but
Yeah, painting
I
is a
just,
whole other thing.
yeah, that's one thing I want to start doing is I want to start printing my own minis, and I want to have fun doing it, and I want to learn how to paint. And printing toys for my kids and everything is going to be an added bonus because those are giving me my experimental stuff to paint on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you're a DM at your table for any sort of tabletop you play, it just gives you a whole new control over the world building that you can do. Because I know you've experimented on Hero Forge, which is an incredible site that you can create a mini on, and then for like $7 you can get the file and print it repeatedly, which is awesome. So, and I know they have all sorts of options on there. So if you're not even into playing D&D, maybe you want to play Call of Cthulhu tabletop, you want to have a detective or, an investigator or something like that. You can still create that, and then you can print that for your own campaign, which I just think is awesome. So that's kind of what I do when I DM things. I'm like, okay, what's happening this session? What monsters are we going to encounter? What do I need to print? What do I need to paint? And then what maps do I need to find for that? And then I just kind of roll with that. So I think it's awesome.
When we invite him back to play our D&D game with us, when we get that podcast rolling, we're going to have to come with our A game.
I agree. I'm with you there.
Man.
But, so the one thing that makes me super annoyed about Hero Forge is it kind of have the lockdown on building miniatures and stuff like that. And me being an anime fan, there are so many times I want to make an anime-looking mini, but there's no websites out that allow you to do that, which makes me really frustrated.
Yeah, that's fair. And the anime's got that specific style, and that's a big market too for anime, is just having figurines of the characters from all the shows. You go into any comic shop, and they have just an array of anime stuff, which I mean is awesome. But yeah, I agree. That's actually a good point. I've never really realized that there isn't a way to kind of design your own. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no. I haven't seen anybody out there designing their own, maybe like items from an anime show.
You never have a place where you can just build your own anime character.
Right, not a character. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's apps that let you do it, but you have to pay out the nose to get all the options, and even then, you can't save that individual file to upload into a slicer.
Right.
So it's entirely frustrating. I'm like, you guys have all these wonderful things like Easy Pose and everything, but cool, I just paid you $50 to unlock everything.
Right.
And now I can do nothing with this. What am I doing?
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes they'll still let you have full access, but they won't allow you to use what your created file is for like commercial use. So like for me, I wanted to design like a few different dice towers and then own those files, print them, and then sell them. Because some people, I just feel like that's what people would want. They would want like, oh, look at this. It's a dwarven dice tower, castle looking thing, or an elvish one, or something like that, or all kinds of different things. And you can design them, but you can't then take what you print with it and sell it for commercial use in some cases. And 3D designing is already pretty difficult on its own. I've tried to experiment with it. And yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I hear you. I hear you on that.
Oh, and then even when you translate it into your slicer, the most minute mistake won't translate over. Or if it does translate over, something will happen to where you can't edit it out, and it's horrible.
Yeah. It's definitely a different world. And I grew up, drawing and doing art, and now I do a lot of graphic design just for myself, and I've done a couple of logos for people and things like that. So from the 2D design to the 3D design world, it's totally something else. And I was getting really frustrated with it, and all I was trying to do was just experiment with, let's make a circle and raise it to a cylinder, and then hollow out the inside to where I put a dice in at the top and it comes out at the bottom, and then I'll make it look like a castle or something like that. And it was challenging, man. And I haven't gone to school for it or anything, so maybe that's why. But 3D design software is super expensive, and sometimes you run into those speed bumps and pitfalls, and it's definitely a challenge. So that's why I'm very thankful that I have somebody who already knows that stuff doing designs for me, and I just do the printing. So it's working good for both sides. So I'm happy with it.
Now a Dice Tower I've been wanting to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what kind of programs does he use to design? Have you ever asked him about it, or no?
I believe it's called SketchUp.
SketchUp?
That's
Something like that. Yeah, SketchUp. Yeah.
Is it like free, or does it cost anything? I'm assuming that's.
I have no idea on that part.
SketchUp costs. Like, you can get the free version, but it's only a trial basis, and then it costs after that, and it can be spendy.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, exactly. But what he sends me is amazing, and I'm really happy. I know he has like a master's in architecture, which I've been working on my bachelor's for a hot minute. So you got a master's in anything, hats off to you. So, but yeah, he's an amazing designer. His 3D maps are incredible. And then the 3D designs that he's sending me to go with those, I think they look awesome. And then I print them and they come out really good. So I think it's going to be really cool. I don't want to go into too much detail because I know him and I are just kind of keeping things on the low, and just kind of only talking about what we've teased so far. But yeah, if you can find someone to 3D design for you, then I would definitely recommend going with that, unless you really, really want to get into it. But I'm content with 2D design at this point.
Nice. I know one Dice Tower I've always wanted to see, because every Dice Tower I see is always like a castle. And right. I'm like, man, you guys got to branch out. Literally, like, give me those scary haunted trees that's got like the top chopped off and like the scraggly branches. And then, like, you pour your dice at the top, and it, like, dice shoot out of the roots, or, like, that scary hole in the bottom of it. Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm looking for. So
I have one design for one that I really wanted to. I sketched it up and stuff. I think it would be really cool to have, like, an 8-bit castle. And I know 8-bit sounds cool when you're looking at a 2D picture, but when you think of 3D, you're like, oh, that's just a bunch of squares and bricks. But if you make it to where it's kind of glitchy, so like some of the squares are not aligned with the rest of them, and it's kind of like, shifting or falling apart kind of thing, I think an 8-bit Dice Tower like that would be really cool. It might fit like that cyberpunk theme that you were talking about. And then you paint it like some really bright blues and pinks with like some silver trim and stuff. I just think that would look awesome. That's super cool.
That would be pretty cool.
That would look
I like that
sick.
idea. Cool. So what kind of podcasts do you listen to, and are any of them 3D print related, or?
Oh, good question, man. I have been on a podcast low lately. I don't really listen to too many right now. I used to listen to Joe Rogan on a regular basis.
He's a good one.
Yeah, and that he I listened to him. I listened to the King and the Sting for a while.
King of the Sting? What's that about?
The King and the Sting. It's two comedians, Theo Vaughn and Brandon Schwab. I don't know how to say his last name, but he used to be an MMA fighter, and that's just what they go by. So it's just two comedians just kind of doing what we're doing, just talking and talking about stuff and having a good time and stuff like that. So it was just funny and entertaining and get my mind off of stuff. But
that's cool.
I just kind of lost interest with them, and I just kind of moved on. But that's kind of how I function. Like, so I'm a Gemini, like, through and through. And I if you don't listen to Zodiac stuff, that's fine. I don't really either, but I do know this about myself, and maybe it comes from being a kid in the 90s and going through all the different fads that became popular. Now my mind is just ingrained to always like do something and then cycle off to something else. But like I just go through phases where I get super obsessed with something and I obsess over it. I learn everything I can about it and I try to master it, and then I move on to something else and just completely drop what I was just doing. So for a while I was really big into podcasts. That's why I had my own podcast. And then after a while, it got too much to do because my wife and I are going to school. We have both kids. We both work full time and stuff. So the podcast became too much to do. So I stopped that. And then after that, I also just kind of was like, I really don't feel like listening to podcasts right now. And that was almost a year ago. And this is like the first podcast I've been on ever. And then the first podcast I've also listened to in a while and stuff. So, but yeah, that's how I function, man. Like when I was in Japan, I got really, really into denim, and I learned how to make jeans.
Really?
So yeah, I actually tore apart one of my old pair of Levi's, and I bought some salvage raw denim from like a Tokyo designer, and I cut the patterns out and I sewed it together and I made a pair of jeans. All throughout my life, you know, I've always been really involved with music, but I'll go through phases where I learn how to make a certain kind of music and like, you know, I write a bunch of songs like that. And so blues, rock, metal, I even did dubstep for a little while. I got into DJing for a little bit.
So you're a jack of all trades then, huh?
That's what I've been called, man. Renaissance man, as my wife calls me. But I don't know. I like learning, and I like that dopamine release when I master something and I get through it. You know, so I'm always doing something with my hands, and you know, that's the 3D printing is really good for that. The painting is really good for that. Yeah, and just always, yeah, I'm always moving on to something else. But then I just have all this knowledge in the back of my head of something. So somebody will come up with, like another thing I do, and this is partially because I'm from Texas, but I'm really big into barbecue, man. So I got really, really into barbecue. I got a smoker out in the back, and I learned all about that. And, you know, so I smoke briskets and ribs and all kinds of stuff like that for all kinds of occasions. And it's like tradition now. I have to smoke a turkey for Thanksgiving, and I don't even like Thanksgiving, but yeah.
For St. Patty's Day, you need to smoke your corned beef. Corned beef.
Okay.
I smoked my corned beef this year for St. Patty's Day.
I don't know any celebrations on St. Patty's Day.
It came out so good. Like the brine just worked with the smokiness.
Nice.
I used applewood. It came out so good.
Awesome. Interesting, man. I'll have to check that out.
So what's one piece of advice you would give someone who wants to do what you do, as far as like maybe running their own Etsy shop or just 3D printing?
Okay. Well, I'm new to Etsy as well. The shop's been open for like 2 weeks. So maybe don't come to me for Etsy advice just yet, but I think, okay. So, and I appreciate the ego boost you guys are giving me, because I don't think of myself as like that successful of a creator or like this big star or anything like that at all.
That's what we do.
I legit ended up, I filmed that TikTok where I 3D printed a couple mind flayers, and I just made it, and then I put the Critical Role track on it because I love Critical Role.
That's the one I found you with.
Yeah, I posted that, dude, and I told my wife, I was like, you know what? This is for me. I'm doing this for me. I don't care. Like, I don't care about this doing this or that. Like, I like this video I made. I want to post it. And I posted it. And like for 3 weeks, it had like 2,000 views. And I was like, that's super cool, man. I can't believe more than 10 people saw this and liked it. And then I logged in at lunch one day to check my TikTok, and I had like, it blew up and it had 10,000 views. And I like dropped my phone and freaked out. I was like, what's going on? And then from there, it kept growing. And then I ended up posting the Catan. After a couple of videos, I was trying to answer people's questions. I ended up posting the Catan that I made, because I was like, hey, I do resin stuff. Let me show the filament stuff. And then that blew up into like my biggest post. And then so many requests for people to buy it. I was like, let's see what happens. So that's how I ended up getting all into all this. And I have TikTok and the fans and stuff to thank for that. But
and here I think it goes rolling in like challenge.
Yeah, no, and that's why I was super happy for it. I was like, cool, man, he's giving me something to print, something to test, you know, and to really challenge myself with, which I love doing. I love learning and challenging myself. And then, you know, it gave me content to post and stuff, which was awesome. But I think it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning is, you know, you were saying like how responsive I am and stuff like that. I just feel like if you take the time out of your day to comment something simple to me, even if it's like, hey, this is so cool, I kind of feel the same need to take a little bit of time out of my day and just say thank you for that. So I think if you want to be successful content creator or a social media person, you know, creator fund or whatever you want to call it nowadays, an influencer, I think it's going to come down to you just being a good person and treating people like people should be treated. You know, you shouldn't demand respect. They should just be treated like a human because they're human, and that's what they deserve off the bat, you know. So just being real with people and being involved with your fans. So I try to comment back on every comment that ever happens. I try to make sure, that questions are answered. And I put that time into that on purpose, just to say thankful, because I'm super grateful that I have the followers that I do and the support that's on there. I just think it's awesome. So I think that's the people side of things. If you want to get into 3D printing and you want advice for that, I would say, so if you want to get started in 3D printing, I say if you want to go filament, get an Ender 3. If you want to go resin, get an Elegoo Mars. And then don't be afraid to just try stuff. You're going to have to go through experiments. You're going to have to go through failed prints. But I'll tell you this, YouTube was a lifesaver for any single question that I went through. It's not like when we were kids in the 90s and we had to look in encyclopedias and like do research and stuff. You can go to YouTube and get an answer for any question you have. So just do that. And then don't be afraid to reach out to people. The worst thing that could happen is you ask a question on TikTok and the creator doesn't answer back. But chances are they might if it's a good question. So
I got your personal info now. I'm just going to call you like, I'm messed up.
Understandable. Hey, that's fine.
I'm going to video chat you. There's resin everywhere.
I can see you doing this.
That's fine. Understandable.
So we're gonna close this up. So real quick, is there anybody you want to thank or?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, first off, not to be generic, but and cliche, but I'm gonna thank my wife because she got me interested in a hobby that I never would have picked up on my own, and I wouldn't be here doing this today if she didn't get me an Ender 3 for Christmas. And so yeah, I definitely her for all the support that she gives me, because putting up with me changing hobbies every 3 months it's a weight on me alone because I'm like, what am I going to get into next? How much money am I going to spend now? And yet she just stands by and she's like, well, I'm into whatever my husband's into right now. So yeah, it's not support that comes. It's not a common thing. So I'm more than grateful for that, for her and that support. So definitely thanks to her for this. I mean, thank you to you guys for, having me on the show and just giving me some time to plug stuff, because I really appreciate that. And then if you follow me on TikTok and you're listening to this as well, thank you. If not, if you find it one day, then cool. Thank you as well. But yeah, I mean, that kind of support is awesome. And I never thought that I'd be doing this. And again, I'm not saying I'm like some mega star or anything like that at all, because I'm not by any means, but I'm grateful. If I had 10 followers, I'd be just as grateful if I had 1 million. So I'm more than thankful to these people. So
that's awesome. Is there anything else you want to say?
I think I'm good, man.
Okay.
I don't have any other real plug. Check out MimicsAndMakes on Etsy. Get yourself a Catan if you want Catan. And then stay tuned for more tabletop stuff as well, because I'd love to be able to provide terrain for Warhammer, D&D, Call of Cthulhu, Star Wars. I mean, that would be awesome. I'd love to have a shop one day. So if you are out there and you have a way to help me have my own comic shop, let's talk, because I think if you could walk into a comic shop and then 3D print, your own minis and, D&D stuff and just set that up there, I think that'd be awesome, man. So I think that's the way to go.
You're on TikTok, and with the only other TikTok person we've ever interviewed was Dyson Dragons, Alex from Dyson Dragons. Definitely check him out on TikTok.
Yeah, I do. I actually follow him, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, he's got a sweet little shop, man. I dig it. So, I mean, if he's got any advice for me, we'll talk, and I'll learn some stuff, But
he's got a lot of insight. So
yeah,
he does a lot. Interviewing him was really great. And Alex, if you're listening to this, our heart goes out to you, and we understand the fires are near you. So please believe, man, we're praying for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, another one, Alex at King's Table.
That's Dyson Dragons.
King's Table.
Yeah, his handle on TikTok is Dyson Dragons.
I brain farted. Sorry, everybody. But didn't you say there was a library in California or whatever that prints out?
Yeah, there's a library that has 3D printers out there and everything, and they do let you print stuff for free and everything, but there's a waiting line and a list and everything like that. Yeah. So that's not something you can just, I'm going to go to a library today and 3D print, because that's not how it works.
Okay. So thank you for joining us on Creators Anonymous. We are asking for your help. If you know someone that deserves to have their story told or have any questions about supporting this creator or any others we have interviewed,
let us know on Twitter at CreatorZAnon with a Z, or email me at CreatorZAnon@gmail.com. And you can always chat with me live in the Cast Junkie Discord. And until next time, everyone, stay creative.